With the announcement that Xbox exclusives are making their way to PS5 and Nintendo Switch, it's clear that Microsoft is testing the water for releasing more of its library on other consoles, a shift in strategy that Phil Spencer and the Xbox leadership team discussed recently in a video podcast. There's history in Microsoft supporting Nintendo Switch already, of course, with games like Hellblade and the Ori titles, but the move to PlayStation 5, a more direct rival in terms of power spec, is unexpected and more contentious. What we have today then here is prior Xbox exclusive Hi-Fi Rush running on PlayStation 5, and for games like this, lower profile titles that aren't exactly AAA juggernauts, they look set to gain a new lease of life on competing console hardware. It's also simply an excellent game. The rhythm-based combat, the decimated animation, all coming together here to create a unique, stylish experience. Giving titles like this, like Hi-Fi Rush, more of a chance to find a bigger audience can only be a good thing for the games themselves, and equally could even help evangelize the Xbox platform to a wider audience. So far, the chosen games to be ported to PS5 are just a handful, a quartet. They also arrive well after a year or more of exclusivity on Xbox systems too. We have Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Gameworks in the line of sight for review today. Previously, we've seen Obsidian's narrative adventure game Pentiment make the jump to PS5, while the same developer is also preparing Grounded for its debut on the Sony hardware. Developer Rare's Sea of Thieves is also set to arrive on PS5 this April, which is also obviously an excellent opportunity to expand the audience of a celebrated live service game. By moving Xbox exclusive games onto PS5, the opportunities are big, but I'd argue that Microsoft is treading a fine line here, and it's crucial that it gets it right. What we've noticed are a series of issues with certain games being ported over, at least initially, where the PS5 versions offer advantages over their Xbox counterparts. The extent of these advantages varies from game to game, from the irrelevant to the curious to something a bit more worrying. And I think the point we want to make here is that when the idea of Xbox going multi-platform is so contentious, arguably they should be doing a better job. Microsoft markets the Xbox Series X as the most powerful games console on the market, so the idea that its PS5 titles are in any way better than the Series X versions isn't a terribly good look. Focusing on Hi-Fi Rush today, something unusual caught our eye then. For the most part, PS5 gets a carbon copy of the existing Series X game as it should be. They sport matching textures, an isotropic filtering, and world detail. Nothing to split them, except this shot raised an eyebrow. As you can see, the shadow quality on PS5 is improved compared to the original Xbox Series X version. It's not a one-off case either, in that it applies across all of the game's dynamic shadows for the environment and characters. The higher resolution of shadows on PS5 allows for more precise shadow definition on fine details, like the mesh pattern on fences here. We have none of the breakup, the aliasing, or the pixelation we see on the lower Series X setting, which in itself is at least a boost over the Series S in quality. To be clear, shadows are the only tangible difference between the two consoles. Otherwise, they both run Hi-Fi Rush at 60 frames per second. It's the same 60 FPS readout as Series X has always been. The fact that there is this advantage on the PS5 version is in principle very odd, and most likely an oversight. Seeing the PC version in action, for instance, on its top shadow settings adds some context here. Simply put, the PC release runs at an equivalent shadow setting to Series X, even when it's fully maxed out. We get the same level of breakup on PC, even on that high shadow preset, whether you're playing the Steam version or the Microsoft Store version. We did some extra sleuthing on this too. Using the Unreal Engine Unlocker, the value for the R.shadow quality setting is listed as 5 for both Steam and the Microsoft Store versions, which is the highest possible in Unreal Engine 4. Regardless, the current result is PS5 gets away with a higher setting than all other releases, though quite why this is the case is a mystery. It's possibly a bug common to both Xbox and PC development environments, but the point is, we're seeing too many inexplicable issues like this, and it's not just limited to Hi-Fi Rush, it's affecting a range of games on Xbox. It began with Ghostwire Tokyo, which released on Xbox a year after its prior timed exclusivity with PlayStation 5. At this point, developer Tango Gameworks was an Xbox first-party studio, and yet, despite the extra year to work on an Xbox Series X release, arriving in April 2023, the game was tangibly worse than the existing PlayStation 5 version released in 2022. Even to this day, running brand new tests on the performance modes on each, using their 120Hz outputs, PS5 still has a visible frame rate lead. The difference is by as much as 10 frames per second and will be entirely hidden if running on a 60Hz display, obviously. But it was the case then, and still is the case. Equally, we still see other key advantages on PS5 today that aren't addressed. The quality mode's ray tracing features, the RT reflections, still run at a higher quality level on PS5. Plus, the issues with misaligned shadows on Series X that Oliver caught in his original tech review still aren't addressed. Again, all of this is despite the extra year of development for Xbox, and the year that's gone by since. It doesn't send out the right message to the Xbox audience, that the more powerful console is underperforming compared to the PlayStation competition. Other, more easily avoidable issues have also emerged. Here's Pentiment running on its PS5 launch build in February 2024. It released with a unique 120Hz mode on Sony's platform, which was not present on Xbox Series X at the time. Let's be clear, 120 FPS is not exactly an essential feature given the type of game Pentiment is. 60 FPS is absolutely fine, but still, it is functionality on PS5 that simply was not available to Xbox Series X for the entire year prior. Xbox systems all ran at 60 FPS at best, up to that point anyway, and its no-show on Microsoft's hardware was described at the time as a bug. Fortunately, since the game's PS5 launch, the 120Hz mode has been patched into Series X as well, giving it the same 120Hz support. It runs just as you might expect it would too, matching the PS5 with the same small blips under. Curiously, the game's title screen sequence, which is taxing and drops performance well below 120 on PS5, now shows a Series X advantage here. That there are drops at all here is a surprise given that Pentiment is a Unity-based, dialogue-driven adventure, but the upshot is Xbox does make the most of its newly added 120Hz mode. Even so, given the contentious nature of Microsoft's multi-platform plans, the whole episode is a PR faux pas that simply shouldn't have happened in the first place. Hopefully, and as with Pentiment's 120Hz issue, the shadow discrepancy seen in Hi-Fi Rush will get addressed too. In seeing both games roll out in this manner, there's the sense that these issues are avoidable with more care in the QA process. At the same time, there is also still some ambiguity about the real-world advantages of Xbox Series X over PlayStation 5, which may explain the issues we're seeing in Ghostwire Tokyo. On the plus side, there are scenarios, of course, where the Series X spec advantage is still obvious to see. Looking back over the many games we've tested over this generation so far, its 12 teraflop RDNA 2 architecture has at times exceeded PS5's 10 teraflop spec with better performance. It's a translation from on-paper specs to on-screen results you'd expect. We saw it happen with A Plague Tale Requiem's 120Hz mode to a great extent. On last testing, Series X had a 10 to 20 FPS lead over PS5 with performance fully unlocked. The results were, and still are, rather stark in direct comparison. Another memorable case is Resident Evil 8, which in using its ray tracing mode showed another advantage on Xbox in targeting 60 FPS. Neither it or PS5 could truly lock at 60 here, but Series X at least enjoys more frames to work with on a VRR display. On the other hand, the last few years of Digital Foundry work have revealed a wide range of games where the smaller GPU and slower CPU on PS5 somehow routinely offers up palpable advantages over Series X. A big case in point is this test, where we got Cyberpunk 2077's internal PC benchmarks running on both console versions, where PS5 shows an advantage. Clearly, there's much more to performance on these consoles than the basic specs are telling us, but even so, whether it's the bugs or the more serious issues found in games like Ghostwire Tokyo, Microsoft should be held to a higher standard when it comes to its multi-platform output. Where there is sensitivity around the idea that exclusive games may jump to rival platforms, it just makes sense to ensure that Xbox versions are as performant and feature complete in every way as the PlayStation 5 version. It's also crucial that Microsoft maintains a reputation that Xbox is the best place to play its own games, especially so as it seems clear that more games will transition to PlayStation in due course. On that note, we'll soon have our hands on more Xbox titles coming to PlayStation 5, like Obsidian's Grounded and Rare's Sea of Thieves. Much like Hi-Fi Rush, they're both Unreal Engine 4 titles, and so it'll be interesting to see how they translate. But that's a video for another day. Returning to Hi-Fi Rush then, no matter which platform you're playing it on, it remains an exceptional release. It's a game built to a rhythm, the combat, the footsteps of our leading man Chai, and the environment all syncing up to the beat. The closer you sync your attack inputs to the rhythm, the more powerful your combos become, and it's a conceit that blends beautifully with its cel-shaded style and the perfect comic timing of its cutscenes. To see a game like Hi-Fi Rush exploding with so much charm, colour and humour is hugely refreshing, and I hope that, in opening the game up to an even wider audience on PS5, it'll be met with the attention it deserves. But that's all from me today. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to like or subscribe, and of course don't forget to hit that bell for instant notifications as any new video lands. To get a high quality version of this video, check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, and to get in touch directly, you know where to find me. But from me for now, thanks for watching.